Senator Menendez, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. President. Questions of the author?
Do you yield?
Gladly, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Fallon, I was reviewing, you mentioned in your question and answer colloquially with Senator Johnson that a lawyer from the LBB helped draft this. Is that correct?
My understanding is that in 2015, when Representative Schofield proposed this organically himself, that it was drafted by Ledge Counsel, I think.
Ledge Counsel?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Legislative Budget Board's fiscal impact note that's in our books?
I am. I have it right here. Yep.
So if I were to read to you here, it wouldn't surprise you that this says here that where the resolution strikes natural persons from Section 1C, Article 8 of the Texas Constitution, and it adds Section 24, stating that the legislature may not impose a net income tax on, quote, individuals. It goes on to say, the term individuals is not defined and could be interpreted to include entities that are currently subject to the state's franchise tax. And this is from the LBB, which is not a partisan. It's something we rely on to know how much something's going to cost us. Do we not?
Yes.
So then why wouldn't you... Well, all right, let's back up a sec. Is there any legislation anywhere in this body, on that side or this side, that is asking or proposing for an income tax?
I'm not advised that all 5,000 or so bills. I wouldn't be surprised if there was, particularly out of the House, but by a member or two. Are you aware of the 5,000? Have you combed through all 5,000 to ensure that there isn't?
I can tell you that if there were any one of us that had filed a bill for an income tax, we would know it because the media would let us know. No, I don't believe that there's
you don't believe it, but you're not sure either of the 5,000 or 6,000 bills. You can't say with 100% certainty that a bill like that has not been filed.
If you give me a few minutes, I'll get my staff to get us the answer. But I'm 99.9% sure there is not one piece of legislation in the legislature today asking for an income tax. Now, you're familiar, you know that where we stand in the nation in terms of our property taxes, correct? We're the state of Texas.
Yeah, we need to do a better job.
Well,
we need to lower them, and that's what we were working on with the surplus, as you know, all session of the $9 billion that we have. How much of it's going to go to public education? How much is going to go to property tax relief and reform? And that's why I was so glad to, support a cap of 2.5%. Because that would help with the future growth. Wouldn't you agree that would help with the future growth of property taxes? It would limit that future growth?
So I'll help clarify. Let me clarify for you that we're number 3 in the nation in property taxes. The issue that I was concerned with, you mentioned a second ago, and let me ask you if I heard you correctly. You said that if an executive came with Toyota, a high net worth, net earner, they could control their property taxes. You said that, correct?
Yeah, by the price of the home that they choose to live in.
So let me ask you a question. What about a senior citizen who's on a fixed income? How do they control their property taxes?
Well, that's exactly where we want to give them property tax relief and reform. We do that by increasing their homestead exemptions. That was something that I supported. Well, you served on a city council. When I served on a city council, I advocated successfully for increasing by 20% the homestead exemption for seniors 65 and over, specifically because most of them are on stead incomes and they need that relief. We've discussed that, and everything's in conference right now, so it's something that we're looking to. And listen, it doesn't matter. I mean, I think it should be bipartisan that we need to address property tax reform and relief.
I agree. So my concern with this is that you talked about the fact that we still have our budget in conference. We still have the school finance reform bill in conference. And as you mentioned a second ago, the school finance reform has the component of what are we going to invest in our teachers, what are we going to invest in programs, and a reduction of property taxes. You are familiar with the fact that we were looking for an extra amount of money to be able to buy down property taxes, correct? We've been looking for. So what my concern is that by presenting this unnecessary constitutional amendment, unnecessary constitutional amendment, you're taking a potential tool off the table.
No, not at all.
I think you are.
No, because, as you know, we pass a handful, anywhere from a handful to a dozen or so constitutional amendments every session.
I understand that. So I just got the information. The only two bills that mention income tax are this one and your companion.
Okay, great.
The only two. So there's no imminent fear or danger of an income tax, right?
I'm always in fear of an income tax. I don't know about you. I am.
So
every day, honestly, Senator, every day I wake up, the idea of Texas having a state income tax makes me shudder.
Well,
physically shudder, not even metaphorically or figuratively.
That's
yes,
why we
just like Senator.
That's why we have elections. That's why we have elections. So the point is this: have you ever had a chance to interview executives, high-income earners that travel? They get moved around. Executives.
Oh yeah, in fact, yes. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Would it surprise you to know that they've told me that in states with an income tax, but with lower or very low property taxes, their net burden is lower. Their net tax burden is lower than it is here, and that they feel punished here for having an extra few square foot of home.
Well, you know what's interesting is I think people vote with their feet, and the fact that Texas has enjoyed massive growth. And I'm unaware, and maybe you could tell me, because we read business journals. You're a business guy, I am as well, and you're successful, and I'm very happy to share. I love it when we talk about business and knowledge that we share and best practices and those kinds of things. I'm completely unaware of any significant mid-size or large business that's leaving, or has left or has plans to leave Texas to move to states like Illinois, New York, and California. Because I think it's fair to compare large states with one another. Very difficult to compare, say, California or Vermont or something. It's not fair. They're different in too many ways. But people are coming here, and I think it's specifically and precisely because we do have this business-friendly environment with low taxes, limited government, reasonable regulation. I think you'd agree. And we have very responsible legislators in both chambers, and incidentally in both parties, that agree there. And I've talked to a lot of high net worth individuals as well, and the fact that in California, for instance, now they have topography. They got the world-class beaches and the majestic mountain vistas and the refreshingly cool August afternoons. We don't. So they have an inherent advantages, and yet we're still winning economically because of the things we just discussed. And I have talked to those folks, and they have got to get out of those environments because it's not only, and I think what comes hand in hand with high income taxes is the fact that it's not business-friendly, and it can be very restrictive. And I think the best thing that we can do is largely get out of the way of business so they can deal with their suppliers and their customers and their clients, and furthermore their employees. And that's the philosophy that we've had. And I know one. If I can share with you just one quick anecdote of a person that was going to move to North Carolina. Was going to about 15 years ago, but North Carolina's state income tax is 9.9%. And it was somebody that was doing rather well, and they just weren't going to pay an extra 10% on top of things. They just weren't going to do it. And when you do the math on what they would pay, even if it was Texas property taxes, they win overwhelmingly. And we want those high net worth individuals to move here because they create wealth and opportunity, because those are the ones that will invest their capital into the state and hire folks, who will then, of course, pay taxes.
High income earners pay high federal income taxes, don't they?
Yes, and they also usually buy very nice homes, and then they're going to shop and they're going to invest in Texas. It's rare that if you move from one state to another, you're not going to invest in that state. I think that it would be odd for somebody to move from California to Texas, and then because they're going to have heavy investment in Minnesota, they probably would go there, start a business, that kind of thing.
The reason for my question was because in many cases, and my understanding is maybe up until recently with this last tax reform, your income taxes you could deduct them from your federal tax burden. So in essence, you weren't actually paying more, you were just sharing some with the state income tax and some to the federal. Now, that's not going to impact this legislation whatsoever. And I'll close with this because we're burning up deadline. The last question that I have, using the Legislative Budget Board's fiscal note on this bill, it says here, it may surprise you to know, and I ask you, does it surprise you? To the extent the joint resolution might exempt some entities from the franchise tax, there could be a loss to state revenue because such a determination would depend on potential future legal decisions. The effect of the joint resolution on the state revenue cannot be estimated. My point to you is this. This legislation, which is wholly unnecessary, could potentially cost the state of Texas more money that's going to have to be made up by individuals, and that's why I will oppose your bill. Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator.
And on the last point, Senator, I would say that could is the key word there. Could. A lot of things could happen.
But it's not necessary. So why put in jeopardy something that's not needed?
I think it's honestly very necessary because the people of Texas don't want this, and we're creating a higher threshold. But thank you very much.
They're not at risk at this point. There's no legislation being put forward to propose an income tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.